Hi, everyone. I feel so honored to be here and to speak about Peter Nestler's film. Yes, it was filmed 1970, and only in 1982 the German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt acknowledged the genocide of German Sinti and Roma. And maybe you know, but I should say it once again. During the Second World War, between 200,000 and 100,000 of people were killed in concentration camps in Europe. So only in 90, yes. So this is basically the first opportunity that survivors of the Holocaust had to tell about their experience. And I'm not sure how many people survived. So here we hear several people, but there were thousands of people who lived for decades with this experience without being able to talk about it. And I was thinking about the role of the artist, of the filmmaker, and I thought I would like to begin with the word respect. I really like that the word respect, coming from Latin, it means to respectos, to return the gaze, to look back, to regard. And I mean, what I see in this film is the eyes of Peter looking at something difficult, at something that many people didn't want to look at. And I think it's very important for people to have the space to talk about their experiences, especially if we speak about trauma. Peter, what do you think? How this opportunity that for dialogue, for opening up? I mean, not everyone can create a situation of dialogue. How? What was important for you in talking, in having these dialogues, in having these conversations?
I've seen these camps outside the towns, and by the woman at the end, it's my mother. I heard a lot because she did do work in the prisons and met people who should never landed there, who should have respectful and compensation for, and at least paid so they can live a normal life. It was not so. And as Hermann Langbein, who was one in the resistance group in Auschwitz, and this resistance group had to save life. What can you do? And anyhow, you know, the group of the crematorios, they got the ammunition and blowed up a crematorium. He talks about interests of these companies like Siemens, who really pushed away this idea oder Forderung eben gestellt wurde. And that's very, very hard. And from the German Sinti and Roma, 10,000 were murdered, and together with all these Roma in the East, one say 500,000 genocide, together with the Jews in the small towns or the villages. They asked, and they had always people who betrayed their neighbors and asked who is Jewish, who is Tzigane. And then they had often to make the graves for themselves, and they were shot and put in these mass graves. And these were SS, and it were to police, normal police who were in these groups of extermination behind the front. So it's so incredible. When I learned more and more, it was hard. And I love these people. I'm always sitting when the film is projected. I love them. And I could never take pictures of corpse, cadavers, and so. They represent eine Würde, how do you say it?
Like value.
Ja, würdevoll sind sie einfach. Ne?
I don't have the word right now.
Yeah.
And how was just one question, the process of the realization and of your documentary? How did you?
Well, the first thing I tried to do was a film about Dachau, because Dachau was not a place for remembering. People were coming there in the 60s. And there were a hotel where the commando were before, and one of the barracks was Block 18 Kaffeestübel, a coffee for people who were going around. And in the blocks, people lived who were without homes. So it was terrible, and they wanted, and I couldn't get the money. That was my first idea before I were painting at the academy in Munich. And then I understood that film is my thing, really, to find the truth behind the common pictures, the pictures you take. And so it was impossible. Then I did some other films, but the Holocaust often appeared inside, like Oedenwaldstätten or so, or the crimes done by the Nazis in Greece. And later on, the theme of the Holocaust came again and again. Judengasse and the metamorphosis of the good neighbor in Poland, and Flucht, La Fuite, of a German painter, very, very good painter who went to France, and the Gestapo came then to Paris. They found and destroyed Hude's work, the Huron, and then he went to the Vichy area, and finally the French police gave him, when at the end of the war, gave him to the Gestapo and Drancy. The train went to Drancy, but he came out of the small port wagon, and he lost an eye, he fell down, but he could hide somewhere. People always, there were people helping too, in the Cevennes, in the mountains, and on a farm he worked. And this question, how can people develop to be so cruel, and why are other people helping? And if you ask them, why did you help? Why did you risk your life? They say, I can't do anything else in this situation. So they can't say anything about Christianity or good heart. They say, I could just not do anything else. Well, this is a thing I'm always going after, and what makes me really afraid is the forcing of the right wing fascist groups, and I know a survivor from Hungary, from Auschwitz. She went there at 17 with her sister, and by a miracle they survived. They came to Bergen-Belsen, and then the Swedish buses took them out of the camp. And when she got the question, could it happen again? She says, it has happened, therefore it can happen again. Maybe not in Germany also, but or with Germany as a center, but it can happen again. And they are all the old people who survived are very in Angst. They fear when they see on social media what's going on there. And even the murders in Germany too, we had a group of killers who murdered Turks and Gitanos. Yeah.
We were talking about poets earlier, and I think in Sanskrit the word for a poet is someone who can see more. And sitting now today in 2021 and thinking about your film that you made in the 70s, I was wondering how you could see more then. I mean, these are stories no one else paid attention to. It was stories that were invisible, and no one wanted to hear about them. And I just wonder how comes that you could see those stories in a time when they were considered invisible stories, non-existent stories. Maybe it's not a question that you have to answer, but it's a question that it's generally what artists are doing. What is it that we today cannot see, but is there and needs to be seen?
I had a big help by Otto Pankok, the painter, who did these drawings. When we came back from Greece, 65, 2 years before he died quite early, I make the connaissance, and were in the house several times, and I've seen these drawings with coal, or paintings with coal, you can say. And his life later, when he died, I heard he became one of the Gerechten in Jerusalem, in the Yad Vashem, one who got honored his name because he saved lives. And he did, when I said it in the film, when the Nazi came to power, he was forbidden to paint. His paintings were, what's the English name for it? Degenerated also. Yeah. And then he lived in a house in the mountains in Eifel, and together with his wife. And then came a painter. His wife was Jewish, and they were fleeing and asked him if they could stay at his home. And they went up to under the roof, a little room, and were hiding there. But then came German soldiers should live in this house. And that could be the death for them all. This couple and he and the daughter. And the daughter were 16 or so, and they asked her, is it okay that we take this risk? But when the soldiers came, so he managed in the night to go with the people to the prêtre, in the village, who was a friend of him and who helped people too, and that's him who hid them in his house. So they never talked about this. We talked about everything, but never mentioned what they did. And so years later, I understood that they got this honoration in Yad Vashem as the just people. No?
And Peter, you when you shot the film, you were already living in Sweden.
Yeah, it's done for the Swedish television.
You left Germany because...
Left Germany because I had difficulties. I was persona non grata at the public service.
You were censored, basically.
I had done some films there, and I had friends who helped me, the chief of the documentary department at Süddeutscher Rundfunk. But from upstairs and I was called communist and someone who spit in the house you live in. How is it?
Yes. You speak badly about the place you live in. So for some years, the film could not be shown in Germany.
For many years, yes.
How did you felt about that?
Yeah, because it was done for Germany too. I thought I have to show it. And even good people who liked my films, they didn't dare, I think, to show it earlier than at the end of the 70s. So 10 years it was just forgotten. But in film clubs and so on, it was shown, of course.
The film has continues to live in different ways now in Germany. In 2018, there was an intervention at the Ludwig Museum in Köln. The curator there, the director of the graphic collection, Dr. Julia Friedrich, she organized a very interesting installation which was called Image and Counter-Image, Bild und Gegenbild. And she showed in one room, on the one side of the room, Peter's film, and on the other side of the room a painting by the German symbolist Otto Müller. It's a very romantic kind of type of painting called Two Gypsy Women with a Cat, showing two women naked in a house with a cat, like in a kind of a very sexualized way. And this provoked quite a lot of debate in Germany, in Köln, especially in the Society of the Friends of Otto Müller. Can you tell us a little bit more about how, what this meant to you, how you saw the installation, if you saw your film in a new way because of this painting? What did this with you?
For
this
me,
experience.
it was a very, very good thing that she did it. And I think Otto Müller is a good painter, and even this picture, but it's full of stereotype about sexuality, gitanos, and
sexualized, animalized.
And so people had the possibility to get these views, or to open their mind to this problem of stereotypes. And after all, what happened? Otto Müller did the painting before the Nazi came to power, so it was the romanticism, things like that. He felt he too maybe is a Gitano by a way, were taken up as a child without parents, with this family. Yeah.
One question. You're both together working together, no? You have. Can you tell us a little bit about the project you're working now, if it's not confidential?
The budget for the
The resistance, the project you're doing.
the project.
The new
Okay.
project,
Yeah,
which is, I think, the continuity of this first
Yeah.
one.
Now I'm working with the film, not only a film, it's a lot of material, and because of the pandemic, we started when the pandemic started, and we had difficulties to film certain times, but then it was possible, and in these 2 years we learned about more and more about the thing. And it's the same, it's the main thing is Austria and Germany and the minority. And I want to read something, and I hope I can read it in Spanish. I translated it to Spanish. There was done now a big work of 15 groups of study, several universities and scientists about the anti-Ziganism. And it's called Informe de la Comisión Independiente sobre Antigitanismo. And in the forward, the introduction, there's something said which is just on the point. The title of this A4 big book, 800 pages, yeah. Cambio de perspectiva, ponerse al día con la justicia, participación. So the text is, era previsible que el crimen humano del genocidio nacional socialista contra los Sinti y los romaníes influiría en el informe de la comisión. Pero el hecho de que los efectos del genocidio nazi corran como un hilo rojo en lo largo de toda la presentación de un resultado inesperado. Esto no se debe al hecho de que las experiencias de privación de derechos y deshumanización, las prácticas de violencia y asesinato, la pérdida de bienes y salud, familia y hogar, sigan presentes para los sobrevivientes y sus descendientes. Esto se debe particularmente al hecho de que después de 1945 no hubo reconocimiento del genocidio durante décadas y los perpetradores no fueron considerados legalmente responsables, sino que pudieron continuar trabajando en gran medida sin ser molestados en la República Federal y continuar sus carreras. En forma de reversión de la culpa, atribuyeron las causas de los crímenes a las víctimas por consenso con amplios sectores de la sociedad. Al mismo tiempo, continuaron prácticas de estigmatización, registro especial, de segregación y exclusión social. La investigación racista estuvo perfectamente vinculada en muchas áreas y disciplinas de la sociedad, ya sea en el sistema educativo, en el trabajo social, en la policía, en la política de asilo y en la ciencia. Los efectos de no reconocer al genocidio y deslegitimar efectivamente el antigitanismo, racismo contra los Sinti y los romaníes después de 1945 son evidentes en todas partes. Hay otro texto que habíamos firmado de una sintita que viene de una familia de su madre de 300 personas. Y de los campos son retornado 3, su mamá y 2 cocinas. Se llama Gita Rosa Martel, es poeta y pintor, y con su hija Nicole son engajados they worked for the in an organization. They built Ketani, that means together, and many Sinti and Roma went there and got help, and Nicole became a lawyer. She studied law. And Gita Rosa Martel came for our filming to a place, a so-called Zigeuner house, where their family lived before. And other people, friendly people, are there now. And there was a little bunk outside, and Nicole and Gita were sitting there and reading and talking about what happened to. And there's a letter to her father, carta a mi abuelo, not father, grandfather. Mi querido papo, no me fue concedido a conocerte. Solo me mostraron tu pasaporte una vez que le habían confiscado, pero luego desapareció rápidamente en los archivos de las autoridades. Te veías bien entonces, como un joven soldado con la falda del emperador. Mi querido papo, haberte conocido en la vida hubiera sido mi gran deseo. Mamá solía decirme lo buena y feliz que eras. Tuviste 11 hijos con mami, tu esposa. No tenías mucho, pero en general estabas de buen humor. Tocabas la guitarra y cantabas las conocidas canciones gitanas. Mi querido papo, me hubiera encantado cantar contigo. En 1941 te recogieron al amanecer. Sube a los camiones de los matones nazi. Había que hacerlo rápido. Los perros de la SA enseñaban los dientes amenazadoramente. Los chavis lloraban. El grito de esposa e hijos pasó desapercibido, sofocado por el miedo por los tuyos. Las lágrimas corrían por tu rostro moreno, mi querido papo. Me hubiera encantado llorar contigo. Meses después, lejos del campamento de Valle, lejos del servicio de esclavos en Ibn Amur, tu pueblo se fue arrastrado como ganado para el matadero. Fuiste en el transporte de Litzmannstadt Lodge sin nada más que lo que tenías en tu cuerpo. Luego vino el tifus. ¿O te moriste de hambre? ¿Has sido gaseado? Desesperadamente llamaste a tu Dios en busca de ayuda, mi amado papo. Me hubiera encantado rezar contigo. Tu nieta Gita. Poscripto, tu pasaporte, el único recuerdo tú, no me lo han dado hasta el día de hoy. And she was sick, but she came to this place because it was so important to talk for the camera for this film. And that's what you can see too in the early film from 1970. The people really want to talk. The first time someone is asking what happened, maybe there was written some articles and so on. I found it, and this Hermann Langbein had written. So I had the information before, but I was really astonished about the force they had. They wanted to tell it. And then you have the man who was a musician, and the wife was in Auschwitz, and she didn't have the force to come and say anything. I haven't time.
Unfortunately, we need to close the discussion because we have another session now. Maybe you want to say last words, Radmila? Huge responsibility you have.
Well, I wanted to open another topic, but there's not much time for it. Lots of people asked why the Roma, and I've been working on film and also on art and culture, and I think that to understand why this racism is so widespread, so unextractable, you also have to understand how art works. And cinema has done a lot to contribute to spreading this form of racism. So this is also something that you address in your new film. And in Germany, in 2017, an institute on the research of anti-Gypsyism was established. It's the first institute in the world on this topic. It resulted from the civil rights movement in Germany, so it was the Sinti and Roma organizations that fought for the establishment of academic institution. It's part of the historical institute in a historical department at the University of Heidelberg. You can visit our website. We have publications that are open access in English, partly in German. Like the first institute on anti-Semitism was established in the 80s, and people say it's too late. So it's interesting also to wonder, why is this racism so widespread and at the same time so disregarded, so unacknowledged? It's just a question that we can continue thinking about. I can give you later. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much.